Good day guys, my name is Zoe, and welcome to another tutorial by Exohe. Yes, ironic isn't it? Tutorial by Exohe. And you're on Exohe's channel. What is this? Anyways, welcome to another one, and you're probably wondering what I'm going to teach you, but you would already know by the title of the video, which is going to be normal mapping, UV unwrapping, and texturing, a basic tutorial. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to call it. I'll decide later. It doesn't matter. Let's move on. Let's get down to what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So, I'm going to teach you how to straight up UV unwrap a cube. Now I'm going to teach you how to UV unwrap, texturize, or just put a texture, and normal map a sphere. And then I'm going to do the exact same with Suzanne. If you know what that is, it's the monkey that Blender has incorporated into their game engine, if you want to call it that. But yeah, Suzanne is a monkey, and it's a pretty complex thing to unwrap. I know it's a basic complex object to unwrap, so that's why I'm going to be teaching you how to do it with Suzanne. It's actually pretty interesting. So stay tuned for that, because this is going to be a roughly 20-minute tutorial. In fact, we're nearly in 2 minutes. That means we're already 10% and we have just been rambling. So we better get started. So if you press Shift A, actually just quickly go through the basics. So to move around, oh, I keep forgetting to do this. I gotta turn on screencast keys. Bloody hell. Text editor, open, Blender, screencast keys. Run script, start display. Okay, there we go. Anyways, basic movement. So if you hold down the mouse wheel, you can pan around the viewport, like the grid line, as you can see it there. If you hold shift and hold down the mouse wheel, you can move left, right, up, down. And if you that's practically all you really need to know. We won't really be using much else apart from zoom in, which is just scrolling in and out with our mouse wheel. I don't know, fairly basic stuff. Let's get started. So right away, we're gonna spawn in a cube, and how do we do that? By pressing Shift A, Mesh Cube. We have a cube in our scene. You probably already have a cube, and you're like, well, why do you need to add one? Delete it. Just straight up delete everything that is in your scene by pressing A or double tapping A, so that selects everything, pressing X and delete, so that you have nothing in your scene. And then you want to start fresh, press Shift A and add a cube. Okay, you are on a roll, you're ready to do this. So now when you're UV unwrapping a cube, it's pretty simple. It's actually really simple how it works, but the thing is, you need to understand it. Mind Facebook. So I found this image on Google, and it perfectly describes how we want our UV map to look like. So what a UV map is it's practically a coordinates of a certain texture. It's sort of like the coordinates of each vertice and face and everything pasted onto sort of like a texture, and it's telling it where to go. So it's just coordinating everything. And that's, yeah. So the reason we want to UV unwrap it like this is because when you UV unwrap and you just like grab a random texture and you paste it over it, the problem is because they'll, like, if I just straight up UV unwrapped it right now, went into UV image editor and press U, unwrap, I get a square. It's covering the whole UV grid line, and it means that each individual square, which is 6 faces, or each face, which is 6 of them, is just taking up its own square in the exact same spot as one another. And that's not what we want, because if I were to put a texture onto it, each face would have the exact same texture. And although that may work for seamless textures, it just doesn't really look right. So we want to use this way so that we can still connect all the textures, or most of them, to the vertices that is opposite to it, while also having proper coordinates that does not overlap each other, if that makes sense. I'm pretty sure some people will understand this because beginners won't really be asking how do you UV unwrap. They'll just be like, haha, no. I'm sorry if there's any beginners out there. If you are trying this, that's good because it's definitely something that you want to learn about when you get into high class 3D modeling or texturing for this case anyways. So we need to look from this image and be able to tell how would these translate to our model here. How would we be able to create a UV map like this one? That's going to be using seams. So I have edge select here, which is what we want. And I also am going to turn off limit selection to visible because when we limit it, we can't see the stuff that's on the other side and therefore we cannot select it. And we want to be able to select it for random reasons. So if I look at this, the one thing that you probably don't understand straight away is that this is actually a cube. This image right here is a cube. So if I were to print this out and I were to cut it up so that I have these exact lines, I have the rough image of this on my paper, I could then fold it and glue it together to make a cube. And that's how we're sort of doing the reverse of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down our cube into this 2D image format onto our UV map so we can tell it where to show texture. Are you with me so far? If you're not, UV unwrapping is really confusing and really annoying. It's like one of the worst things that 3D models hate. And yeah, but you'll most likely learn something. So I recommend staying tuned. Anyways, so this bit right here we can tell is the very base, the very bottom of the cube. So this bit here, the bottom of the cube, is the same as this one. And what we want to do is with our seams, so we're going to be creating seams, and those are going to be able to tell it where it can disconnect another texture. So if I put a seam right here, it will tell this face to disconnect from this face. Not as physically as like a model that will disconnect from the model, but when it's UV unwrapped, it will disconnect from it to be a texture coordinate. Whew. This is gonna be one long tutorial. Anyways, so where I see the lines that aren't connecting to any other faces, so I can see that this line right here, I need to be able to draw. I wish I had a Surface Pro 3 right now because it's like draw on it. Nah. Oh, I can open it up in Paint. It doesn't matter. I can tell that this area out here isn't square and this does not connect to anything. So I can tell that that is a seam, that it should be a seam there because it's been disconnected from another one. And I can tell that this one, if it wasn't disconnected from this one, that these two would go together. So essentially with every area that this whole white space is where a seam should be, if that makes sense. So what we want is a seam on the exact outline of this. So we can tell this is a side, this is a side, this is a side, and this is a side. And straight away we can tell, okay, we want a seam on all four sides. So using edge select, holding shift and pressing right click, we're going to select all four sides because we already know now that those need seams. So considering how this is a side and this is a side, but there isn't any top connected to it, apart from these weird trapezium-like things, which I'd actually, if I were to print this out, they're specifically there so you can glue them to the other parts, but that's not the point. I can tell that this is not connected to the top part, which is this one. So I can tell there's a seam up there. So straight away I can select two ends, doesn't matter which ones, it can either be this one or this one. or this one and this one, but it can't be this one and this one. It has to be the opposite one. So like that. So now we've got that. We've got these ones sorted out. We've got this one sort of sorted out. Not really. No, we don't. We've got this one sorted out. And that's about it. No, we have this one sorted out as well. But we now need to sort this one out. So we need to say, okay, this one isn't connected to the top either. So we need to find another one. So it can be either one, this one, or this one. But it can't be this one and this one. It has to be either one. So I'm going to select this one over here. I'm going to press Control. Oh, no, I'm not going to press Control E yet. I'm not going to make the seams yet. And we now have our selection, and we've now got this one sorted out, this one sorted out, and we do actually have this one sorted out, the top one. Yes we do. So now I can just straight away press Control E, mark seam, double tap A, press U, unwrap, and now we have practically the exact same image that we see here as a coordinate, except it's like, I don't know, on the other side. So if I press R, Y, 180, I can, now have it look, yeah, that's the exact same. So that is how you UV unwrap a cube. That got a little bit confusing at points. I'm sorry if you lost me, and I will try to help you understand if you did get a bit confused. So if you're so just be like in the comments, at 11:03 you said cubes are aliens. I don't know what you mean by that. I'll be glad to try and help you understand. So now that we've UV unwrapped our cube, we're not going to even bother with the texture for it. We're just going to straight away, yep, okay, we know how to UV unwrap a cube. That is good. That now you should have learned that. So we're going to delete the cube now. We don't need it. Now I'm going to teach you how to UV unwrap a sphere. Now the sphere is actually a really easy one. It's actually one of the easiest ones, but explaining how it works is another part. So, okay. So if I were to flip the normals of these so that the faces are facing on the inside of the model rather than the out, so they're projecting a texture to the inside of the model, when we would have to use an acquire rectangular image in order to grab a specific texture, in order to project a texture properly inside the model. And so for an example, this is an acquire rectangular image. If you look on Google Maps, so I'm just gonna, I don't know, go to Google Maps. I'm gonna look up my street or whatever. I don't know, Google Maps. 40/313 8th Street. It doesn't really matter if people know where I live because I have like 100 subscribers. Would they really bother to find me? Maps. No, I don't live in Melbourne. I live in Mildura. Yes, Mildura. There you go. You got it. So now if I go Street View, this is sort of where I live. I think this is when they were being built. No, this. Anyways, if I look around, I can see that the image is all around me. Somehow I'm looking all around me. It's like I'm actually there. In a way, it looks like someone took an image in every single direction and I can view it all. And what I acquire rectangular images is it's essentially when someone takes an image from every single angle possible and stitches them all together to be on the one image. It's sort of like a panoramic image, except it's supposed to be used on the inside of a sphere. So yeah, but the thing is, we're not going to be doing it on the inside, we're going to be doing it on the outside, so we're going to make Earth. We're going to make Earth, that's right. I have an image here, I'm going to use this image. This is an acquire rectangular example image that I just randomly found on Google. If you type up acquire rectangular Earth, you'll find this one. Just download it or whatever. So we're going to get our Earth to look like that. So one thing I want to do is I'm going to just quickly spawn in a sun by pressing Shift A, lamp, sun. Just have it rotate a little bit, put that there, and perfect. We now have a sun, so if I press rendered in the viewport shading, and see that it's actually rendered. Okay, so now we need to UV unwrap our sphere so that it fits this acquire rectangular image of Earth. So if I type acquire rectangular Earth, the thing that the model practically already knows, but we're actually going to tell it, so that's why it only practically knows, it doesn't fully know, because we have to tell it, so we need to tell it that it is a rectangle, it's going to be a rectangle. We need to inform the sphere that's going to be a rectangle. We need to sit it down, we need to tell it it's going to be a rectangle. It may be hard for it to understand. So we're going to do that later on, after we've during the process of actually UV unwrapping, but we need to mark the seams first in order for it to tell it, you're going to be a rectangle. So we actually only need to make one line of seam, and that is just an edge, which is right here, because if we look at this, it's one whole image and we can't see any disconnections apart from at the top and at the sides. But we don't need to do the top because it generally already knows that it's going to be, because we're not actually going to have a top. That's what I was trying to say, actually. It's not going to have a top because we need to delete that, because otherwise it gets little bit confused and it just practically blacks out that bit. But we just need to make one seam along the side. But where's the side? How do we know which side? Well, it's simple. If we have edge select, we have nothing selected, we can just select any one, hold shift, alt, right click any line like that, and we can create a seam. But we're not going to do that just yet, because like I said, we need to delete the top. So what we're going to do is going to delete the top, the bottom, delete the vertices. You see that? Now we have a huge hole in our Earth. And we need to be like, we don't want that. We don't want a huge hole, but we want a minimal hole, because we're not going to fill it up entirely, because that was what it was like before, and that's when Blender sort of got confused with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top line of vertices, the bottom, so the circles or the hole, and we're going to remove a hole. Isn't that quite the paradox though? I mean, remove a hole, how do you do that? Can't add another hole. Anyways, if you select the top, the bottom, press E, so that way it extrudes, and what extruding is when it's practically when it duplicates a set of vertices that you have selected and it connects them to the previous vertices that were there before. But they're still there. It's connecting them to the... It doesn't really matter about that bit. You just sort of learn it through modeling. Anyways, now we need to scale it down to be a very small size. We need it to be practically closing up this humongous hole here. So we need to fill it in. We can do that by scaling it. So if we press S, this goes into scaling mode. So if I move it up into the center of the screen, my cursor into the center of the screen, you can see that's getting scaled down. But it's also being scaled down on the Z axis, which is up and down. So we don't want that. We don't want it to be scaling on the Z axis. So a way to do that is if you press S and then hold shift and press Z, it will scale on every other axis, which is X and Y, apart from Z. And that is what we want. So we're going to just drag our cursor into the middle, and we're just going to keep doing that until it's really small. Oh. And you know what, that's about fine. But the thing is, when we scaled it down a lot, it sort of lost its spherical shape. So as you can see, there's a flat top and it lost that, and we just want to recreate that. So if we press S, Z, and just hold shift so that we move it slowly, and put it about there, and it's perfect. So now what we're going to do is, if we select edge select and press A so that we have nothing selected, shift alt and just select a random line, doesn't really matter which one, and then press Control E, mark seam. Now, we need to tell it that it is a rectangle. It may not be ready for it because it isn't. It still has to be a bit more developed. So if we press A, press U, and then go sphere projection, we see this random projection that is like completely not right. It's not working right now. So we need to tell it to be a rectangle, and it's very simple how to do that. So if you go sphere projection, so if you don't have this menu here, press T and it should pop up. And then we're going to go under sphere projection, direction, align to object. And now it's like, oh, I'm a square, I'm a rectangle, I'm everything that this image is. And clip to bounds. No, scale to bounds. There we go. And that is it. We are seriously done. We can, if we go into our material tab, which is up here, press new. We go new under our material tab, image or movie, open, desktop, our acquire rectangular earth. So we just want to open that up. Press UV map under mapping. So UV map. That is it. I'm just gonna smooth off this, and if we hold rendered, we have Earth. See that? It's Earth. There I am. I'm right there. I'm in there. I used to live there, but now I'm there. That's me. That's me. And you're probably there. I don't know. I think a majority of my viewers are from America, so I don't know. That's Africa, I know, but I mean, I kind of can't see America. And I think it's okay. So directly behind Australia is, if we were to dig directly down, we go to the British Isles. British Isles are somewhat near America. So here, yeah, got it. Anyways, we have our Earth projection and we're done. Maybe. I don't want to be done. Not yet. Because I want to teach you about normal mapping. So what normal mapping is when an object, like when you have a high poly object, or it doesn't have to be high poly. Actually, if normal mapping is an image that tells an object to fake its shading according to its coordination. So if light is being shown in a direct thing, it will fake shading of bumps or whatever, or smoothness, which is what we're going to do in this case. So we're going to spawn in another sphere. We're going to go into our modifier tab, which is a small wrench bar, add modifier, and we're going to press subdivision surface. We're going to make it 3. So that way it's really smooth and it's perfect. It's really smooth, and that's what we want. And we're going to press apply. So we already have our UV sphere, not our UV sphere, just our sphere, already projected its image or its texture coordinates onto a UV map. And what we want to do is we want to tell our model, which is this one. So I'm going to call this Earth. I'm just going to call this high poly sphere. And we want to tell our Earth to have the same shading as our high poly sphere. And the way that we do that is through baking textures. But you can't bake a texture if there is no texture to begin with. But where does this texture need to be is the question. And the texture where it needs to be is on the UV map itself. So if we open up if we go into edit mode in our sphere, our Earth, and we have our UV map here, and we press new plus new, go create new image. I'm just gonna call it Earth 1024 by 1024. Yeah, that's fine. And done. We have our image assigned to our Earth. Even though it's a black image, it's going to overwrite that image when we tell it. So through baking, it's a weird word. Yes, I know. Baking. We're not actually going to put our Earth in an oven. That would be problematic. We may all die. what we are going to do is we're going to tell our high poly to bake its shadow its geometry. Yeah, tell its geometry to bake it to our Earth. So we go into our bake tab, which is under our render tab. So we go down, so we press bake, and we want to select normals. And so right now you can just be like, oh, okay, yep, okay, bake, yep, go ahead. And we just get a completely purple, bluish, violetish, or the above-ish sort of texture. And it's like, well, is that right? No, it's not. So the way it tells it how to fake its normals is, or its shadows, is through this purplish, bluish, pinkish, because there is pink, texture. In fact, if I look up an example of a normal map, we see this. This is, so I think pink is high. Pink means the geometry should be high. I'm not quite sure on that. It might just be the position of where it is, but realistically, this is bumping out. It's actually sort of inverted. So if we look at this picture, we can say, oh yeah, it's clear. It's going in. It's indenting in, but it's actually realistically bumping out. Like same we could say about this one. But it's also sort of a matter of perspective, because like at some points I can say, yeah, that's bumping out, or I can say it's bumping in. And this one I can clearly just say, yeah, that's bumping in, out. See, it's really confusing. But clearly we can see that our normal looks nothing like this. Or I don't know. We don't want it to look like that. That would be a bit weird, because I mean we'd have these weird things going on. But we want it to at least have its pink and blue and everything sort of mixed in. And the reason that isn't showing through is because we haven't told it, you know what? We need our we haven't selected our high poly and our earth together, because it's like, well, am I just rendering the earth's one? So we need to select our high poly and then our earth. It has to be that specific order. And then we can bake. No, we can't. I was wrong. I knew I was wrong to start off with. Don't worry. The reason that it still hasn't baked the text is because we haven't told it, yes, we want the selected one, which is the high poly one, to bake onto the earth, the low poly one. And there's a simple button for that, and it's actually right there next under tangent, and you're probably like, oh, I feel like an idiot now. Selected to active. Or maybe you're just like, oh, well then. Okay, I knew that. Yeah, whatever. And if we press selected to active, and now we bake. What? Okay, I don't think that... no, I think it did work. Yes, it did. Very barely, though. Like, you can barely see it, but it did actually work. So you can see it like here. You can see the different colors. In fact, due to YouTube's compression, you may not be able to see it at all. But if you're following along with this tutorial, you should easily be able to see it. Wow, we're already 30 minutes in. I've done a lot of talking, and the thing is, I don't think I can cut any of this out. So, anyways, it has worked, and we can say that. But the thing is, what do we do with this image now? What can we do with it? I'm going to try to speed this up, so don't mind me if I go to it a little bit too fast. Anyways, we need to save this image, but how do we save it, you ask? Well, if you press F3, it's going to save that image. The image, you have to be on this though. So press F3, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop like I always do. Earth.png, whatever, I'm not even going to bother naming it. And I've got it. Okay, now I'm going to go over to my material tab, and I'm going to go into my texture tab actually, and I'm going to add a new texture by selecting this one below the texture. I'm just going to call this the earth texture, and I'm just going to call this the normal map. Okay, we've got that. Now we need to open our image, so we go desktop earth.png, and we can select our UV map and done, right? No, we're not, because we haven't told it that it's a normal map yet. So if we go under image sampling and tick normal map, it's like, okay, well, now I know to read it as a normal map. I now know that the RGB values can convert it into a bump map. And now we could probably render it. No, still not. We can't, because we're under influence. We're telling it, yes, this is color based. We want it to affect the color of the material, but we don't, because if we affect the color of the material, we have a bluish earth, or pink or violet, whatever you want to color that color, and we don't want that. We want it to be able to go under the geometry, and we want it to affect the geometry normal. So if we press normal and then best quality under bump mapping method, we now can say that it will render correctly. The thing is, with this high poly one underneath it, it may confuse the render. So yeah, if you just like press the eye and the camera, you won't be able to see it from there on. But now if we go rendered, look how smooth it looks. The way the shading works, it looks a lot smoother, even though it isn't. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I never knew that could happen. Awesome. So now you know how normal mapping works, and how texturing works, and how to UV unwrap a sphere. Oh, and a cube. You also know that. Texturing works the same, and so does normal mapping, but I don't know why you would want to normal map a cube unless there's a bit of bumping in it, like if you wanted to have a pavement sort of texture. That's fine, but it sort of follows the same sort of way as a UV sphere. So now I'm going to quickly tell you how to do it with Suzanne. Suzanne, the beautiful little critter. Actually, should I save that for another part? Oh, I'm going to save it for another part. I'm sorry, but like, because 30 minutes is sort of my limit for tutorial. I can go for an hour, but I mean, people would really start to tune out at 30 minutes. So I'm going to save. Thank you so much for... So I'm going to save it, actually. So, next part will be out straight away. It'll practically be out as soon as possible. It's just that people get a little bit like, oh, 50 minutes, I'm just never going to bother watching this. But if they see two 30-minute ones, they can be like, okay, I can watch one and say I'm done for the day, and then watch another. Okay, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. And if you didn't, and you like, oh, I already know this stuff, well, tell me what else to do a tutorial on. I don't know. This is something that generally confuses people. I can say I was confused about it for quite some time now, but I can say that I'm not now. Anyways, so thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, because I have like, wow, how many viewers now? Subscribers. I think it's 140 or 139, 136. That is still insane. I never even expected that amount. And 3,000 views on my speed modeling holographic site, which isn't even that great of one, but still insane amount. I love it. I love it. Not really. I don't know. It feels like I have a reputation to live up to. So that's why I'm actually starting to release tutorials somewhat within a month of each other. Anyways. That is all for today, or for now. See you guys in the next video. Bye.